What is going on, NBA 2K fans? It's the Real 2K Insider, and we're going to be breaking down the official NBA 2K roster update for March 5th, 2026. We're going to be doing the official roster for a change rather than my own roster. Hopefully, you guys have been keeping track of the daily updates that I have been making to that, but we're instead going to be covering the official roster, which is something that I used to do a lot more of back in the day, since I've since decided to just focus more on my own stuff rather than worry too much about what 2K is doing. But it's nice to pop in. I think for the first time this year, kind of see where things are at with the way that they're editing ratings. How does that affect how I do some of my ratings? Because I always try to base mine off of, or at least my scales and like the algorithms that I use are more or less based on what 2K does. I just consider myself more consistent with it than they are. So we're going to be going over things that I wish they could be doing better. Let's just start off with the actual update itself. So there were 158 rating changes in this update, plus 51 from the previous update. The previous update was only a 2-week period, if I recall, and it was based around the trade deadline where there were not a lot of players playing. Like a lot of players were on the move or like being held out because they were expecting to be traded. So it was just a lighter update with not too much of a sample, whereas this is a 3-week update. It's covering the period from February 12th until essentially March 4th, so nearly a month. Obviously, the All-Star break was also factored into that, but yeah, so a pretty extensive update for all these teams, at least compared to what there was previously to work with. We have 11 big movers, which I determine as a +3 or greater or -3 or greater change in rating. Spoiler alert, there are never really any negative big movers. It's really mostly positive big movers, and I'll go over some of that. But we have also 6 badge updates. That is -8 from the previous update. So even though they had more to go off of, it seems like the badges kind of took a back seat in this update. So we also have 25 mini movers, I'm going to call it. I consider the big movers, the 3 or greater, but 2 is also like realistically, like these are the most. Any player that has any like actual change to them is going to be a 2-point overall change. I don't really get crazed about the +1, -1 stuff. Like other people can care about that, but most of the time, anytime something is +1 or -1 in rating, half the time it has to do with like their 3-point percentage for that 2-week period. 3-point percentage is an extremely volatile stat, and 2K, it's one of the major ratings that they update on a week-to-week basis, basically. So I think that they actually do it to kind of create more of a change. So it shows that there's 150 rating edits every time that they do an update. They want that number to be higher, so I think that's partially why they go a little crazy on it. But for the most part, the guys who are +2s, -2s, that's more than their 3-point rating. So that's maybe they improved their defense or rebounding, passing, etc. Like they've been playing a lot more minutes in their rotation, things of that nature. It's not just statistical variance or anything like that. So that's what we're going to be focusing on. I'm going to be glossing over most of the -1, +1 stuff unless it's entirely appropriate. We're just going to be going through chronologically. I wish there was a way to change. Like 2K lists all of the teams alphabetically by team name, whereas like pretty much anywhere else in any other, only 2K does it by team name alphabetically. Everywhere else has it by city alphabetically. So it's kind of annoying. I wish you could switch that around or do it by conference or whatever, but it is what it is. This is how they have their spreadsheet in their roster document. So starting off with the 76ers, they had 4 changes. VJ Edgecombe went up to an 82. That's just a +1, nothing really. I've considered him a little bit overrated by them for most of the year, like his layup rating, for example. He's actually not that great of a finisher, not that efficient, at least in terms of getting at the rim. He's pretty good at a good floater game. But Cam Payne was a -2 in this one. He's just sucked since joining the team. Obviously didn't get to go through camp or anything with them. But yeah, he drops. I don't like that though, because it actually gives him a lower rating than Kyle Lowry, who's behind him in the rotation. 2K generally doesn't update players unless they accumulated statistics, and Lowry has not been playing enough to accumulate statistics. So his overall rating has basically been the same throughout the year. So even though Payne hasn't been great, he should not have dropped below Lowry. If they were going to drop Payne, you should have also dropped Lowry. Let's actually hop in over to. I didn't take any notes at all for this, so just bear with me. Only the only notes I took were just the rating changes for this update and the badge changes. I reviewed all of those. So as far as like this, player X averaged this and this, that's not really what we're going to be talking about here. It's just like the big picture stuff. And I just want to use this campaign Kyle Lowry thing as an example. Kyle Lowry's only played 72 minutes on the season. He's played 8 total games. Campaign has played 8 games and 107 minutes. He's already played more than Kyle Lowry, even though he just joined the team like a week or two ago. So that's how little Kyle Lowry is in the mix. So yeah, hopefully that sells that point home for you. Let's go on over to Milwaukee. I like that they have some injuries in here, but they don't really go nearly as in depth, unlike some of the day-to-day stuff or the week-to-week stuff. Like they've got Paul George's suspension, which is 25 games or whatever. Johnny Broome is having knee surgery, so he's probably going to be out the rest of the year. But they don't have Joel Embiid, who's out right now with a strained oblique. I'm kind of okay with that, just because it'd be too much for like casual fans who just want to like load up the game and play with, whoever. Like Embiid might be back next week. He'll only miss like 3 games or something like that. So it doesn't like really make sense for them to be going back and forth with all of the players on like a daily injury sheet and stuff. Like I'm okay with them not going that hardcore on it, but we are going to see as we go through the roster some players where it's like, wait, why does this guy have an injury and why does this guy not have an injury? So I just wanted to address that here. Going over to Milwaukee, they have a bunch of plus ones. Jericho Sims being the only plus 2 on their team. He's been the backup to Giannis, which I want to get into the positions on this team. 2K's done a really bad job with the positions for this team in particular throughout the year. The Bucks are a little bit of a weird team. Like you could see AJ Green is a small forward here. He started most of the year at small forward, but that is not currently the case. They've actually been starting Ousmane Dieng at small forward, pushing AJ Green down back to his natural position, and they brought Ryan Rollins off the bench behind Kevin Porter Jr. Again, his natural position is more of like point guard. He plays point guard, whenever Porter hits the bench and Cam Thomas checks in. So it's always a little weird when a team doesn't have 2 players at least at each position. It kind of makes things weird when you run a season and things like that. Like technically, KPJ and Rollins have started a lot next to each other, but that was not when Giannis was healthy. And right now, it looks like they do want to try out Ousmane Dieng next to Giannis. Kuzma was the backup for Ousmane in that last game. Jericho Sims, he does not have a secondary position of power forward. He plays next to Bobby Portis and Miles Turner in lineups. Like when I say he's been subbing for Giannis, like exclusively, like he's Giannis's backup. So the only way that can really make sense is if they have the same position, because that's how the AI is going to make the lineups, which you can sort. How do you get there? Rebuild rotations? No. Rotation timeline. This is essentially, when you organize the rotation, it's going to do all this like kind of automatically. So because Sims is not even in the rotation, he doesn't even pop up here. But let me see if there's other. We'll review that with another team. But I actually decided to move Sims over to power forward, just kind of based on Dylan Cardwell with the Kings is kind of a very similar player, and he's like been playing the 4, and 2K's got him at power forward. So this is just like they're not really in touch with what the team is doing. I look at lineup data. Like I actually look at the lineups themselves, whereas like 2K is just going off of like estimates from like a website and it doesn't really actually reflect like where these guys are playing on the court and what the substitution patterns are, etc. So that's my notes for the Bucks. Let's go on over to the Bulls. 9 changes for them, I believe. Eight. 8 changes for them. This is the most among all the teams for this cycle. Lots of plus and minus ones. Gershon Yabusele being the biggest mover on the team at a +2. He's been starting since joining the team, so well deserved for him. Again, where players are in the rotation matters a lot with their overall rating. I noticed that Yuki Kawamura was a big mover in the previous update. He went from a 68 to a 72. I actually thought this happened in this current update, which I was ready to go ham on because he only played a 1 minute over the last 3 weeks. For him to go +4 overall, for 1 minute of play, would have just been absolutely insane. But this is something that they actually did in the previous update. But that was, again, just kind of based on like garbage time minutes. That he's not really he's been playing in the G League ever since. Was only getting some spot minutes just because they had Josh Giddey and Trey Jones were hurt, but he's completely out of the mix now, and he's got a higher overall rating than Leonard Miller, who has actually been in their rotation playing 20 minutes a game over their last like 3 or 4 games. So Leonard Miller actually did not get a rating boost in this update. Or no, he did. I'm sorry. He's a 71 +1. So he's still, like, he was rated lower than Mac McClung prior to this. He should have been at the very least in the same range as like Rob Dillingham, or even like a 74-ish overall. Like he's been getting spot minutes in the rotation, whereas Yuki's just like a meme kind of player, like G League only. Bulls in general could be doing a lot better with the back end of their roster. Their two-way guys are pretty comical. Having Yuki and Mac McClung as your two-way guys is those guys are not going to be actual like NBA prospects or anything. They're just to sell tickets for the Windy City Bulls, I think. Cleveland, they are a bunch of +1s and -1s. I didn't really have anything crazy to talk about with them. Jarrett Allen being a +1, well-deserved, because he's been awesome over the last couple weeks. James Harden rejoins the 90 overall club. I think he should have already been there based on what he was doing with the Clippers this year. It's funny, Harden was the All-NBA third team last year, but I actually feel like his season this year has actually been better than what it was last year. It was the Clippers' defense why they were winning games, not James Harden's like offensive ability or anything. So he's been better, and the Cleveland has been on a roll since he joined the team. So nice to see him in that 90 overall club. Which, by the way, you know what? I didn't even break down the tiers that 2K essentially uses for their overall ratings. So 95 and up is basically your MVP caliber guys. Which 95 through 98, obviously the guys who are 98s are like your Jokic, SGA, etc. The guys who are like the actual favorites to win MVP. And then anybody under that is kind of on like the outskirts, like a low-level MVP candidate. Like if those guys got hurt, that's who do you be considering? Like Cade Cunningham, who we'll get to a little later in this video. He's a 95. He's arguably like number 4 on the MVP ballot race. Behind, I think most people would take Wemby as number 3. And then, but all those top 3 guys have dealt with 6 injuries. So if they're not eligible to do the 65 game rule, Cade's probably the next man up to win that award. So overall ratings, things like that, like the awards and stuff do factor in a great deal. Where a player's stature is in the NBA. Forget about the statistics. That's why I didn't take any notes on what players are necessarily averaging, but because in my 20 years of doing this, I've come to realize it doesn't actually really matter what guys are averaging, because there are so many variables related to who their teammates are, etc. So there's a little bit more intangibles and nuance to it. Ooh, you like how I threw that in there with that rating that everybody hates, but I have come to love. 90 to 94, that is basically all NBA level of guys. Obviously, 90 is like a low level all NBA guy, whereas 94ish, those are guys who are mostly filling out like that all NBA second team, your Jalen Brunsons, etc. So that's 90 through 94, and obviously these guys are pretty much usually all-star locks, unless something goes off, like them getting injured or whatever. 85s to 89s are your all-star caliber players. So these are all guys that could make all-star in a given year. Like Evan Mobley, for example, last year was an all-star. He was not this year. Going back to some other teams, have we done any other? I guess we haven't done many other 85s. Derek White gets a little bit of low-level like all-star buzz every year. Darius Garland was an all-star at one point, and he's kind of fallen out of that bracket. Geez, not a lot of guys in that 84, 85 range, but type 2K. Tyler Hero is another guy who was an all-star last year, but wasn't this year because of injury. LaMelo Ball has made it at various points. So a guy that is not necessarily an all-star in a given year, because there are so many of these guys who are worthy at any time. But like obviously Cleveland has 4 guys who are in this range or better, but not all of them can make it in any given year. And then 80 to 84 are your starters. This varies a little bit by position. Point guards are generally going to rate higher, or at least there are a lot more star level point guards rather than starter level point guards across the NBA. And typically like starters / like quality like 6-man guys like a Peyton Pritchard, etc. So when a guy drops, like Dennis Schroeder, I think at the start of the year at an 80 because he was the Kings starting point guard, but he is he's seen his role diminish throughout the year, and that's why his rating has diminished. So that segues into 75 to 79. Those guys are role players. The higher up you are in this tier is essentially where you are. Are you the 6th or 7th man, or are you the 10th man? So 75s are usually like the fringes of the rotation. Sometimes they might be a DNP-CD. Other times they might even be like a low-level starter, like a Keith Bogans type, where like they'll start the game but not finish it and play like 15 minutes a game or something like that. That's usually like a player with an extreme skill set, like all defense, no offense. Typically players like that, or vice versa, although those players will typically come off the bench. But 75 to 79, and then 74s and under are basically reserves, i.e. like third string level players. Anything under 70 is a G Leaguer. 68s, usually the default rating for any player that comes in on a two-way contract. 2K will just like start them at 68 for the most part. So yeah, that's our tiers for all of these overall ratings. So let's move on to the Celtics. They have a big mover. Ron Harper Jr. goes +3 to a 71. But in general, like the ratings for the Celtics team are really fucking disappointing, I have to say. They have so many players who are playing at such a high level. They're the number 2 team in the Eastern Conference, but I feel like their ratings just don't really reflect it. And when you go deeper in, like Nikola Vucevic gets a -1 in this update. Neemias Queta gets a +1. Neemias Queta is just straight up better than Nikola Vucevic. He's been the starter for the team all year. Vucevic is coming off the bench for the Celtics, and he has not played well. He's not a good defensive player. Like, he put up numbers with the Bulls as a starter, but now he's in a much different role with this team. And your overall rating is essentially your value to it's your value around the league and your value to your team. And he is not somebody who, oh God, they have him as a starter. They couldn't even be bothered to actually update his oh my god, wow. Okay, but yeah, if we just automate the lineup and rebuild it, this is the lineup that if you start in MyNBA, this is what what the default roster is going to be, or MyNBA and MyCareer, etc. You're going to be up against a team starting Nikola Vucevic. It's immersion breaking to a great degree. So yeah, this is very disappointing to see. He's been with the team for a month now. And aside from that, like Baylor Shireman continues to go up in rating, but he has no badges. Neither does Hugo Gonzalez, who got like the fact that he's a 74 overall, by the way, means that they're just straight up not fucking paying attention with this team. The only thing they update is the fucking 3-point rating. He should have a much higher layup rating. His dunk rating is probably a little underrated. A 29 pass vision rating. Oh my god. And then we get to his defense. His defense is pretty underrated, I would say. That's probably one of the biggest calling cards that he has with this team, is just how much he brings it on the defensive end. 75 speed rating, so he's not even like anywhere near as athletic as he is in real life. Just a piss poor job with basically all of the role players on this team, aside from like even Sam Hauser's pretty like shitty ratings. Yeah, this is from top to bottom. Like, you know, they're doing some of the work like by incrementally boosting some of their minor players. Well, not minor players, but like actual like role players who are contributing. But the changes have been like very minimal, is what I mean to say. But yeah, I have no further comment on what 2K has done with the Celtics. They could be a lot better, should be a lot better, and they give a ton of focus to the Golden State Warriors for, spoiler alert, it's because it's 2K's local team. And I guess they pay less attention to like the Eastern Conference teams, kind of as a result. I don't. It's very disappointing as a fan of the NBA to see the Celtics looking like that after it's March. We're 60 games into the year. Some of these things probably could have been addressed already. Clippers, the Derrick Jones Jr. He's a +2, so he's a big mover for them. I guess having his position like at small forward right now, he's been starting at the 4 or the 2 for this team. He's been starting rather than like Benedict Mathurin. Darius Garland has been coming off the bench. I kind of give them a pass for, he just came back from injury. Most people are going to be loading up the roster expecting to play with Darius Garland in the starting lineup. So I get it that like these rosters are kind of made more so for the casual fan rather than like somebody who's like really tapped into the NBA. But yeah, I'm not really a super fan of that. Grizzlies, they have 8 rating changes on this team. Jalen Wells, Taylor Hendricks, Olivier Maxence Prosper. Those guys are all +2s. And then Javon Small and Jemai Mashak. Those guys are both Small's a +5, Mashak's a +4. Neither one of them has a badge change. Actually, none of these players have badge changes. Hendricks has 1. Prosper still has 0. So yeah, there's and Jalen Wells has 2. So like yeah, there's still a lot of work that could be done with all these players that they're changing throughout the year. The overall rating, badges matter more than attributes, to be quite honest. Like a lot of times you can change ratings, like shot IQ, things like that, intangibles. Those things affect the overall rating considerably, but they don't really affect the on-court ability. Like you've got Ty Jerome at an 82, but with a 69 speed, what is he really doing? Some of his ratings are just atrocious, but they'll inflate his shot IQ to kind of, and pass IQ. These ratings that don't really have an impact for a user. So and it does make a difference when you pick up the sticks and use these guys. So yeah, Grizzlies have a bunch of guys who, their ratings are going up because they're playing more, because they're in the rotation for their teams, because everybody's injured on this team, but they haven't really gone in and like done the work on actually making like meaningful improvements to a lot of them. The Atlanta Hawks, they got a +3 for Jonathan Kuminga in this one, which he more or less is being kind of reverted to where he actually was. I doubt they improved like any of his like actual like shot ratings or anything like that. Rather, it was just like his intangibles rating that they had arbitrarily kept lower. So now that he's like back playing for the team, for a team, they just boosted his rating up to +3. Jalen Johnson's a guy who's like very struggled to get the 90 overall this year, and I I mean, okay, well here we go. This is why, because they have not updated any of his defensive ratings for the entire year. In fact, these are ratings that he's had for like the last 3 years. So if you're wondering why they can't get him over a 90, maybe they could actually put in some work on the. Oh my God. All right, moving on to Zachary Rizachet, I should mention, is a -2 in this one. He's essentially lost his starting job after the trade deadline, and they picked up Jonathan Kuminga. So Miami, 7 rating changes for them. Jaquez is a -2. I didn't really see that coming. I don't know what he's done statistically over the last month or so. But Yakachonis, he's actually passed Drew Smith in the rotation, so +3 overall for him. I can get behind that. Myron Gardner is +2 overall, which is good. He's been part of their rotation. Now that he's part of the rotation, 2K should really get around to changing his shot tendency. These are, I don't know who the fuck they copied. What player's DNA that they cloned when they decided to add him to the game. But this is just completely unacceptable for, he was on a 2-way contract, so you could kind of get away with it. But now he's like the 10th man on this team. He's actually in their rotation, going to be getting minutes during my NBA season, my career, my player, whatever. So, yeah, this needs to be addressed. 2K has not updated any shooting tendencies at all, period, in the last 2 years. These are still like, most players are based on what they did 2 years ago. So Norm Powell, for example, he's an all-star now, but he's not even like playing, his tendencies are not even at the level of what he was with the Clippers last year when he was a borderline all-star. So there are like a number of players where that's like a huge factor. We could go back to the Hawks and see, Nickeil Alexander-Walker has been averaging 20 points this year, and he's a 45 shot tendency. Jalen Johnson is playing at an all-star level the last 2 years, but he's a 55 shot tendency. So Onyeka Okongwu's a starter now. Like the Hawks in general have to be like one of the worst teams to like simulate with. Oh my God. Yeah, so that's my major takeaway with the Heat is Myron Gardner's shooting tendencies are still the same. Kashad Johnson, funny enough, he was a slam dunk champ. These players would always get a dunk rating boost to like max them out almost. He doesn't even have like posterizer or anything, like no badges. They didn't change any of his dunk ratings or anything. So I don't know if that just speaks to like the effort that they're putting into the roster right now, or just that nobody actually cares about the dunk contest anymore. Probably leaning towards the latter at the very least, but certainly 2K did not do, they did not put a lot of effort into this particular roster update. They've done a pretty good job this year, but just this update in particular, I'm not very high on. You'll notice we went through like 10 teams without covering a single badge update. We finally have one with the Hornets. Kon Knueppel got one additional badge. They added on break starter for him, which, okay, I guess. Like, this is one of those badges that they've been like progressively adding it on to a lot of players throughout the year, I guess. I don't know what they use for it, like if there's a statistic they have access to that shows, players are pushing the tempo more so than others or whatever, or if they're just doing it arbitrarily or whatever. But a lot of random players have been getting like break starter and also bailout. Like Knueppel got bailout gold added to him earlier in the year, which I don't really follow on. In general, a lot of his badges are very overrated. Just because like he's the big hot name. Like I don't understand why he's got silver, off-ball pest, and pick dodger bronze, because he's not like his defense is more so based on like his IQ rather than like his like quickness at like getting over screens. If anything, he's not guarding these type of players really. So I thought those additions were weird. He's one of the few players where like I actually have like fewer badges on him than what 2K does. Some of his badges are just like shifty shooter and stuff. Like he's not Damian Lillard. He's not taking a bunch of shots off the dribble or anything like that. He's not Cam Thomas. He's the best spot-up shooter, the best spot-up shooting rookie that we've seen in like a number of years, basically since Reggie Miller. He's not He's not taking guys off the dribble and pulling up. He does that a little bit, like 3 times per game, but that's not a gold. Um, a gold would need to be like twice as much volume, for example, in that regard. So, and like float game, I don't even have this on him at all. He doesn't even take a floater per game. So, but they immediately gave him a gold, like as soon as back in November. This is the first rating change that Khan has had since November, and all they did was just add on break starter to him. So that's one of our 6 badge changes for this update was Khan. I'm okay with like 87 overall, but they need to be doing a little more with just like I'm sure some of his attributes, like sure max out, yeah, go nuts, give him a 96 3-point rating, shooting 44%, 43%, whatever he's at. That's kind of getting the Curry treatment a little, but some of his other attributes are kind of meh. The badges are weird, and the tendencies. Maybe actually have him behave appropriately in a season so that he actually has a prayer of winning Rookie of the Year. Ain't gonna happen with a 45 shot tendency or a 58 3-point tendency. That's just wow. So yeah, very very low effort. I feel like with the tendencies, somebody must have gotten fired. Or like reassigned or something, like for them to not have been updated in the last 2 years. It has to be like nobody's job right now, because why else would it be taking this long for them to update that? Utah, only 4 changes for them. Blake Hinson is a +3. He's also one of our badge changes. They added on set shot specialist for him. It's basically the same change that I made for him in my roster. I've got him in the same overall rating tier. Again, like he started playing. He's on a 2-way contract, but he's found his way into the rotation just because of all the injuries that they have. They're just tanking away. So sure, make him a little more playable. Other than that, I don't really have a ton of notes. I don't really get on with John Conchar at the 4 when he's really more like a 2. I'd have Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey's been starting at the 4, and they have him at shooting guard. Elijah Harkless has been starting 2 over the last couple games, so hopefully they make that change at some point. Sacramento, we've got 5 rating changes for them. They're all +1, -1s, though. I don't really have anything to really discuss with this team, so let's just move on to the Knicks. They have the big mover. Jose Alvarado is a +3. This is essentially kind of rectifying what should have always been. He was pretty underrated out of the gate. So now that he's playing for a larger market team and everybody sees his value now, so they're giving him the boost, but nothing really has changed with him, his production or anything like that to warrant a +3. It's just, everybody's noticed him a lot more. Lakers, 6 changes for them. They're all +1s and -1s. I don't really have much to say anything about them. Yeah, so let's just go on over to Orlando. They have 7 rating changes, but those are, again, all +1, -1s. I feel like Desmond Bane going up, like he's been up and down with his 3-point shooting the entire year. Over the last month, that's really kind of solved itself. His drive game has been much improved this year, and that's, again, something that just is not factored in at all with the badges. They have bronze layup mixmaster and physical finisher on him, and that's about it. He's been a better finisher than a shooter this year, so strong handle, things of that nature. Yeah, he has no playmaking badges on him either. So, even with like high-level starter players, Desmond Bane's a top 50 player in the NBA, only has 9 badges. And this has been the case with him for like the past couple years, dating back to Memphis. So like even these mid-tier players, they just don't really pay too much attention to. It kind of sucks to see. And then as we go further down, Franz Wagner's another guy that like they didn't have much badges on him until recently. Yeah, let's just go on over to Dallas. They've got 2 +2s on this team, Najee Marshall and Brandon Williams. Najee Marshall actually has a badge change. He's a +1 badge from 8 to 9. Paint Prodigy went from a silver to a gold, And then they added on Versatile Visionary. He's been a pretty good passer this year, pretty good finisher as well. So I'm okay with those changes for him. Brandon Williams has been starting. He's been in and out of the starting lineup, but he's kind of solidified himself as a starter of late, just kind of due to the injuries to like Cooper over the last couple weeks. Cooper, of course, not being injured, even though he hasn't played really since the break due to his sprained foot. But should be back soon, so, it's fine, I guess. Brooklyn Nets, they have only two rating updates on this team. Nolan Traore goes to a 78. That's and Terrence Mann was +1 to 75. Traore sucks. I don't he's starting for the Brooklyn Nets, but again, this is just because the Brooklyn Nets don't have anybody else on this team. His production has really been bad. On a season level, I know he's been playing a lot better over the last month or so, or at least he's been posting more counting stats because he's been in the lineup. But he's shooting 39.5% from the field, 32% from three. And he's got a pretty high turnover ratio, 3.2 turnovers per 36 minutes versus 5.8 assists, so not even like a 2-to-1 as a point guard. A 7.9 player efficiency rating, 49 true shooting percentage on 20 usage. Heading into his monthly splits, January he averaged 8 points per game. February he averaged 12 points per game. So he's been scoring more, but that's, again, he's just playing a lot more, and they've had guys out of the lineup, etc. So I don't really read too much into that, but I guess he would not start for any other team in the league. I'm not even sure if he would be in the rotation for any other team in the league, but it's kind of a tough tightrope to walk because you do want him to be higher rated than, I guess, because he plays more than most of the other guys on this team. And it's just kind of something that kind of struck me as this guy's not playing better, but they not efficient, not more. He's not more effective, but he has been playing more for his team. Denver, only 2 updates for them, but they're both solid. +2s for Christian Braun and Julian Strawther. Those guys have both been back in the rotation. Braun, in particular, started off the season kind of poorly and has been ramping himself back up since coming back from injury. So I'm actually okay with the changes for the Nuggets in this one. Going over to Indiana, they have 9. Okay, so I said Chicago had the most. Indiana actually has the most rating changes, and they have 2 big movers on this team and 2 badge updates on this team. So they definitely had the most amount of work done to them. Just going through positionally. I was expecting to find Cam Jones here, but they have him and Talon Peters position switched for whatever reason. But Cam Jones, +3. He was a +3 in the previous update as well, so he's been much improved over the last month, or at least playing a lot more. 74 overall for him. No badge update for him, though, but we did get one for Talon Peter. He's a +6 in this update, which is a bit long overdue. He was the lowest rated player with a standard contract in the roster for a while, but has finally gotten some actual attention, going up +6, which is one of the bigger boosts this year for a player, and then got 4 badges out of it as well. And then Jarvis Walker has the other badge change on this team. 10 badges for him, which is +4. I didn't actually review what the changes were. I missed that. Whoopsie. But it looks like probably pogo stick. A lot of these silvers probably used to be bronzes, and I think the layup mixmaster and float game are probably new additions. Would be my guess. But he gets a badge boost, which has been well deserved. He's been very up and down with his offensive contributions over the last year or so. He'll go 1 for 10, in a game, and then go 8 for 10 in the next game. But he has been playing more just with guys like Nesmith, etc., Siakam out of the lineup. Obviously, they've been without Ivica Zubac since the day that they traded for him. Nesmith, by the way, played yesterday, but is still sidelined in the roster. So, if they are going to be updating, applying, and he didn't have a major injury. He had a sprained ankle. So, what's the difference between a sprained ankle and a strained oblique, right? So, if you're going to be sidelining Nesmith, you probably should be sidelining a guy like Joel Embiid as well, or just leave them all active. I'm okay with that too if you just want to keep in the major injuries, but that's kind of how they've been doing it this year. Pelicans, 6 changes for them. Saddiq Bey, he's been awesome this year, +2. If there was a not most improved player, if there was a comeback player of the year award, it would definitely be going to him. DeAndre Jordan's stepped into a starting role with this team. Bryce McGowan's also a +2 in this one. They switched him over to small forward, which is kind of like, I sort of get it because they already have a bunch of 2 guards on this team. But he's mostly been playing like the guard position this year for the team. The Pelicans are a little weird of a team positionally. As I actually have Zion at the 5 right now, because he played small ball 5 in their last game. But aside from that game, they have been playing DeAndre Jordan as a starter over the last week or so. He's got like 4 starts, I think, on the year, and bringing Derek Queen off the bench. And this to me just signals that Derek Queen is somebody that they've essentially given up on as like a center. He's not a rim protector by any stretch. He's kind of small at 6'9", 250. Not like a crazy like run and jump athlete or anything. Kind of like his draft comp was Alperen Şengün, who plays a little bit of 5, but he's also years older, has had some time to kind of develop his mind on that side of the ball, and he's like average to like slightly above average defensively, I would say. Like, he's not the reason why Houston is as good as they are defensively. But Derek Queen, like, they essentially have just kind of realized that he's not going to be a rim protector. They're probably going to want to play a rim protector next to him. So they have been playing DeAndre Jordan and Yves Missi next to Derek Queen. Derek Queen, he should have been had his position changed to power forward rather than center. I kind of understand them, being a little slow to the take because this is a little bit of a recent development. But once you're boosting DeAndre Jordan's rating, you should actually go through and like kind of analyze, like, okay, why was DeAndre Jordan's production up? Oh, it's because Queen is coming off the bench. And who is Queen subbing for? It's not DeAndre Jordan. He's been coming in for Zion Williams. They want to stagger those 2 guys, so they should not have the same position. They should not be playing. They accounted for that lineup at least. I'm surprised, given that they've got Vucevic starting in Boston. But going over to Detroit, they've got 8 changes. All of them are +1, -1s, so not a lot to read into. Most of them +1s. The Pistons have been hot, 9-2 over their last 11, although I believe they did lose their last game. But Jalen Duren +1, Cade Cunningham +1. Those guys have been very important to the success of that team this year. Cade has really thrust himself into that MVP ballot conversation. So 95 overall is very well deserved for him. He's not, he's not without his warts. He's definitely not this good of a finisher, but he is a pretty good mid-range scorer. 3-point rating, his 3-point shot could be a lot better. I think his post game is probably underrated by 2K, wherever that is. Yeah, that's certainly the case. And then his defense is kind of an underrated aspect of his game, especially by 2K. That's really what separates him from other point guards, is that he's 6'6". His listed weight here is 220, but like the Pistons media notes actually list him as like 244. Like, he's got a man's body. He's got Luka's body, but he's actually has a little bit of like he gives effort on the defensive end, unlike Luka. So that's essentially, I think that's a great comp for him, actually. He's Luka, but not as good offensively in terms of his like scoring ability, but just as good of a passer and a much better defensive player, which, depending on the way your team is built, might play better in a playoff series. We'll see how things go with the Pistons. Toronto, only 2 updates for them. Brandon Ingram and Grady Dick. Some people had cried that Ingram should have been higher rated because, he made the All-Star team kind of as like a, the 5th injury replacement or whatever. Michael Porter Jr.'s had a better year than him overall, but I understand wanting to reward Toronto for the year that they've had rather than Brooklyn for the year that they've had. But I don't consider him like he's not a high-end All-Star caliber of player. Certainly, I would not take him over like an Evan Mobley or even a Jarrett Allen if you had to put a gun to my head or anything like that. Certainly not the same value as like Scotty Barnes on his own team. I would say Barnes is a much better two-way player than Brandon Ingram, who's really just a mid-range scorer, like a poor man's version, a destitute man's version of Kevin Durant. KD gets a 93 plus 1 in this update. I read some people crying that like he should have been higher, but he's not really. His statistics are great again, but the Rockets, which are led by KD, are not the same position that the Detroit Pistons are in. And Cade, that's why Cade has been getting MVP buzz. KD, for the most part, has not gotten a single degree of MVP buzz, and I'd be surprised if he actually got a single MVP vote aside from the guys who are going to vote for their favorites as a favor. So the guy, like, he might get a handful of like 5th place votes and stuff like that, but he has not really been in the conversation for like best player in the league this year. As the Rockets, you could kind of argue that they have disappointed a little bit at various points. He's also definitely not teammate of the year, given some of his comments about players like Alperen Sengun and Jabari Smith that came out. His burner accounts, he can never keep his mouth shut on social media. San Antonio, 5 updates for them. De'Aaron Fox, notably, is a -1 to an 85. I felt like, well, I did break this down a little bit because I watched Pete Toll's video on the roster update prior to me recording this, and he actually asked me if I could look up why he went down, and the reason is De'Aaron Fox, aside from that first month that he played when right when Wembanyama got hurt, his scoring production has kind of dwindled throughout the year as Steph Castle and Dylan Harper have essentially gotten better throughout the year. So they've actually taken a lot of Fox's touches, and he's ultimately like a step slower than what he used to be with Sacramento. What's his speed rating? A 97 speed rating, because again, the 2K does not update speed or any athleticism ratings, or really anything aside from the 3-point rating every fucking week. So yeah, this is essentially, if they updated his athleticism ratings, maybe they wouldn't have to like fudge around with like his intangibles ratings to get his rating this low. But 85 for Fox. I did want to, he's another one of those guys like Brandon Ingram who made the All-Star team basically just because of his team's record rather than like his actual on-court play. There are plenty of other point guards that I would take over De'Aaron Fox. I would not say he was top 5 at the position in the conference or anything like that. Phoenix, only 2 changes for them. Oso Ighodaro and Jemare Bouya were +1s. Oso Ighodaro's probably going to be a big mover in the next update as Mark Williams. He's going to be out the next 2 to 3 weeks with a foot injury, which, like right before he hits restricted free agency, he's had a foot issue, I believe, previously. And foot issues are obviously, got to be careful with guys that size. So it looks like Ighodaro might be their starter heading into the playoffs. So keep an eye on that situation. He's somebody that they've barely touched since the start of the year. To 45, defensive consistency. They should probably pay a little more attention to what's going on with this team. The Suns are in the position they're in right now because they've been playing hard defensively, and that just doesn't reflect across a number of players on their roster. Oh boy. Going over to the Thunder. I'm kind of conflicted, but they're a tough team to evaluate. Jared McCain's a +2, Cason Wiles a +2, Isaiah Joe a +1. So these guys now actually both have higher ratings than Lou Dort, who's the actual like full-time starter on this team when everybody's healthy. So I'm not really sure how I really feel about that. Those guys have been great. Maybe change Dort's position over to small forward. Uh, if you're going to be doing it that way, I don't know. I think Dort's one of those guys who should have a higher rating. In general, it's definitely held down a little bit arbitrarily, but obviously he's an all defensive level of player. Not the most efficient player offensively, although good God, with this 92 mid-range rating. This is why understanding sample sizes, by the way, is important. Do not, if a player is like 10 of 12 or something like that, like don't read too deeply into it, because that's going to level out over the course of a year. Yeah, I'm not. The less I look at that, like that's a pretty bad rating in my opinion. Even though Dort himself didn't have his rating changed, like it just makes his rating not changing alongside these guys. Like again, overall rating is not how the player is individually per se. It's how they're valued on their team, and Dort is higher up in the pecking order than both of these players. Once Jalen Williams is hurt, Dort's not going to be the one that hits the bench. It's going to be these guys. Minnesota, only one update for them. Ayo Dosunmu goes -1 overall. Okay, sure. I don't really have a ton of notes for them aside from like Bones Highland. Like he could have gotten a badge update at some point this year, as he's really restored his career. You could definitely add a lot more badges to him, or even have an extreme, like some of these actually could be golds. He's like that level of like shot creator, kind of like a Cam Thomas, like no defense but all offense type of player. Portland, 4 updates for them. They're all +1, -1s though. Caleb Love is on a 2-way. He's kind of a difficult player to evaluate because he's on a 2-way and he's not going to get a standard contract this year. He was playing for them earlier in the year due to all the injuries, but is out of the rotation entirely now because he's close to his games limit as a 2-way player. You can only be active for like 50 games in a given year. And like since Scoot Henderson has come back, he's essentially been out of the rotation. And also Drew Holiday to an extent. Really, as soon as Drew Holiday came back, he's been out. Shaden Sharp's been out, and Love has not been playing. As also they got Matisse Thybulle, etc. back. So like these are all players that Love is below them in the rotation, so they should actually reduce his overall rating to kind of reflect that, instead of having him be like the 8th best guy on the team or whatever it is. Warriors, they get 7 updates on the year. +2 for Guy Santos, +2 for Gary Payton II, +4 for Nate Williams. I fucking called it 2 days ago when he had his huge game that he was going to be getting a big update from the Warriors stands over at 2K Sports. Again, when you look at some of the other players that we've discussed, how long it takes for them to get updates. We saw this previously with Will Richard. Will Richard had a big week, and immediately they were like, oh my god, +8. We have to give him a whole bunch of badges. Of like not even bronze quality, like silvers and stuff, based on a fucking week of play. And yeah, at least they had the good sense to not give Nate Williams any badges based on that one game that he played. But yeah, it's so stupid. Brandon Pajemski is essentially the best player on the team right now. Porzingis has not played for the team except for one game, and he doesn't have an injury designation with the team, which is kind of weird. Let's see if they actually have him as starting. At least they don't. Okay. It has been Guy Santos as a starter. Guy Santos, by the way, gets a badge update in this one. His second badge update of the year. He had one previously. He kind of hit the map in that last update. So he's got 8 total, +5 total badges for him. Finisher's a +1. A set shot specialist +1, so they actually improved the quality of those and then added on all the other badges. He previously had Paint Prodigy, so all the rest are new, which I'm okay with, like the playmaking stuff, because he's a pretty good passer, things of that nature. But some of this stuff I felt like is overboard. He's actually not that great of a taking contact and finishing. only like 0.2 and 1s per 36 minutes on the year for him. Set shot, like he's okay like as like a corner 3-point shooter, but he's not like a volume like above the break 3-point shooter type of guy or anything like that. So I would just have that as a bronze rather than a silver, but that's how I distinguish it. Whereas like they're a little more arbitrary with how they're grading a lot of these things. So yeah, that's the Warriors update. Kind of biased as usual with Nate Williams being the next big mover, and then finishing off with the Wizards +4 for Jameer Watkins, but he's again no badges for him, even though he's played a lot more than Will Richard has over the past week or so. Keyshawn George is going to be out, so they got that injury in. Okay, they're a little connected to what's going on. Yeah, I don't really have any other notes on the Wizards. This video's gone on for nearly an hour, so I appreciate it if you are this into 2K rosters as I am. Feel free to like, follow, subscribe, all that jazz. It is very important to the health of the channel. We want to get out, hit as many viewers as possible, help the algorithm, etc. I can barely talk at this point, but if you enjoyed this content, feel free to watch some of my videos. The Real 2K recap is where I go through my own personal roster, the Real 2K rosters, the modern era, which you can download. Here's the file name, etc. Username is Real 2K Insider. So if you search for either of those things, either Real 2K or Real 2K Insider, you'll be able to find my content, which has, I've not been promoting my stuff all that much this year. I've just been focusing on doing all the videos and content, but I break down all the changes that I make on a daily basis. So if you're into that sort of thing, feel free to check it out. Thanks again for watching. I will see you guys later. Peace.